Hey, how you doing? It's Gus Tucker. It's Financial Freedom Fridays on the Saturdays, June 9th. It's a beautiful day here in Chicago, man. Nice and sunny. Can't wait to get outside, man. It's gonna be awesome. And we've got a conference going on in our church, and it's a youth night where we're gonna have a lot of music, and it's gonna be upbeat. It's gonna be fun, man. So I'm excited. How y'all doing? How y'all doing on Friday? Share this with your friends. Share with your enemies too. Like, subscribe, comment, engage. So what I had started doing last week was telling a little bit of my story, so you can kind of understand a little bit about who I am and how I've come to more or less be the person I am. At least share a little bit, and it's helping me to kind of put some things together and connect some dots for myself. Let me mention this to you. I'm a person of faith, and there's something that says in Proverbs that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Earlier today, I was watching a video on multi-generational wealth with three African American, three black women from Chicago. Melody Span Cooper, who owns a radio media business here in Chicago. Melody Hobson, who's a co-president of Ariel Capital, one of the largest investment companies in the country that happens to be black owned. And she's also married to George Lucas, who of Star Wars fame. And then the treasurer of Chicago, Teresa Conyers Irving. And they were talking about multi-generational wealth and how different ones of them families left in real estate and different things. I want to mention something to you. Money is only one of 7 areas of wealth. We covered it before. We're going to cover it again. Here's what I suggest you do. I was talking to a young lady earlier today. She got a 13-year-old daughter who's starting to develop in every way you can imagine. And so as a parent, you have to prepare them for that, right? And then one day she's probably going to grow up and have children of her own. With today's technology, one of the things I would encourage you to do is to do what I'm doing right now. Do a podcast for your family. Share your story. Get it recorded. Share the insights that you learned from your journey in becoming the person that you are. The lessons you've learned, the mistakes you've made, and capture them. We got this thing called smartphone. Let's let it make us smart. Make us smart. Or you got, like I do, a camera up here. You can record streaming. Start recording your story for your family. If nobody ever sees it but your family, man, it's life-changing. Share your story. Create some content on a regular basis. Like you're reading, you're studying, you're taking notes, you're getting insights. Share those insights with your family and friends via social media. Okay, share your story. Because we connect with one another through our story. Somebody has an experience, you have the same experience, you're able to share and then give each other different perspectives on the same experience, and both people learn, right? Because my experience is unique to me. I'm the only one that's going to have my experience, and you're the only one that's ever going to have your experience. But if we share, we can learn from each other. Okay, we can learn from each other. So I'm going to skip through a number of these things here. See if I can find my way. I'm going to skip through and just go. And like you say, what you see is from where you sit. And that's what your family needs to know. From where you're sitting, from the person you are, share your perspective, okay? And so we had got to the point where I had moved to Chicago. I moved to Chicago in 1981 after I graduated from the University of Arizona with an undergraduate degree in marketing. It was a BS, Bachelor of Science in Business, with a major in marketing, and I went to work at the Quaker Oats Company. And in 1981, they hired me. I was making 22, 23 grand a year. By 1983, I was making 50 grand a year. more money than my mother had ever made. You know, couple things. Maybe this is true for you as a black person coming up. But one, my family at home in Ohio was like another bill that I had to pay, like rent, water bill, or utilities or get food. I sent money home, sizable amounts, okay, to help my mom and my grandma make it through. Why? Because they took care of me. The last thing I was going to do was have them struggle because they did everything they could so I could get there. Like I said, those two turtles on a fence post, they didn't get there by themselves. That was me. So one of the things as I reflect back on it, I really didn't have any good counsel about money. Here I am, 1981. I was 23 years old, and I'm in Chicago on my own, trying to develop friends, figure out what's up. So, man, I'll tell you how prepared I was. In Chicago, you rent an apartment, they got this funny thing. They want first and last month's rent at the beginning. I just got out of college. How much money I got? Zero. Single mom working to just make ends meet. No first and last month's rent. Also, you rent these apartments in Chicago. Most of them aren't furnished. What? I gotta buy a refrigerator, stove, and all this furniture too? Are you kidding me? Rude awakening. So you know what I did? I hadn't even started work, and I had to get an advance on my check to get a place to live. That's how financially I was prepared. My parents, my mom, she didn't know. She didn't know. But man, there's this young lady in HR. I wish I could find her who pulled some strings as a sister. She pulled some strings and worked it out for me uh, to get an advance of my salary so I could get moved into a place. So I ended up moving on the south side, on the north side. I never forget it, 530 West Aldine, one block off the lake, right? And I found a furnished apartment. So one bedroom, man, with air conditioning and a parking space. That's nothing. I had to pay for a parking space. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? When I was in Arizona, you could park anywhere for nothing. You come to Chicago, you get an apartment, you got to pay for a parking space. I'm like, what? Joe did, because you live over there off the lake, you come home, ain't nowhere to park. But I never used the car, at least during the week, because I would just, you can walk everywhere. So I was moved to Chicago, I was on the north side. And uh, so I'm way up in Chicago. 8 blocks in streets is a mile. And so if you go south, it's all numbers. If you go north and west, they have major streets that are like every 4 to 8 blocks, right? And once you learn that grid, you kind of know where you're at. So I was 4 miles north of Chicago, and the church I went to was like 10 miles south of the city of Chicago. So that's like, depending on the time of day and whatever, it's anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. So all the people I knew lived on the south side, and I was on the north side. All the people I worked with were on the north side. So this was another part of my situation. I lived in at least three different worlds. At least three. One was the white world of my employment. Because in my department, the black people were me, Mike, Mike Austin, Carol Hillsman, and that was it. And I don't know, they were 50 marketing people or something, 50, 60, 70 marketing people. We were way less than 10%. something like 5%. I just reconnected with one of my friends from back then, Carol, just this past weekend. So, so I lived in a white world. Then I lived in a black world that was corporate, right? Lived in a black world that was corporate. Oh yeah, Diane Primo was there. Yeah, there was more. There was more people. Um, I lived in a black world that was corporate, and then there was my church, where most of the people weren't corporate. They had non-Fortune 500 type jobs, where they worked at the city or the county or the state, or they had a less skilled situation. You know what I mean? So I lived in at least three different worlds. That was interesting because I'm going to show you a grid, and I'll show it to you right now. I'll skip ahead to it real quick. I want to show you something. See this right here? Spiritual and personal development. It says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. In the beginning, the first thing God created is time. You know, God doesn't live in time. Think about that. You want to mess your mind up? Think about this. God doesn't live in time. He's eternal. There's no time. So time is a people thing. We think about time. Time's getting away. The calendar, the clock, time. We think about time. God ain't thinking about no time. Space. God is everywhere at the same time. What do you mean space? That's a human thing. Space was created. And then matter. Creatures were created. You know, rocks, things like that. Okay. The first thing we have to get straight to begin to live a successful life and create wealth is our identity, our beingness, because God told us to be fruitful. Fruit is on the inside of a seed. The seed is inside the fruit. The fruit brings that seed out, plants it, and then multiplies after itself. You were given a specific seed. Your gifts, your abilities, your experience, that's your seed that you're to plant into the world to reap your harvest, called your provision, the value you create in the world. And the more value you create for other people, the more money you get paid, right? So we make money by creating value for other people, and then we get paid for the value that we create. Does that make sense? And the foundation of that is your identity. Okay? And your identity of who you are is really driven by your mindset, how you think, and how you perceive things. I'm going to go back to that. But why is that important? Well, because back here, when I was here at Quaker Oats, in a primarily white environment, then I had black upper middle class people that I worked with that were educated, da da da. And then I had a third, which is my church. All three of those realms impact your identity, especially if your identity wasn't solid at the beginning, which mine wasn't. I was not strong-minded. I was not resilient emotionally. And so I took a lot of my cues from how other people treated me. So I took my value from what other people said my value was and how they treated me. It wasn't inside out, it was outside in. Can anybody else relate to that? So my life kind of went like this. Based on my performance and the results that I was getting. Now, I went to work at a place. Remember, I went to University of Arizona, the Harvard of the West. And the people I worked with all went to Ivy League schools, Northwestern or University of Chicago. Now, you think I wasn't prepared to move into an apartment to get started in Chicago? What do you think my wardrobe looked like? Oh Lord, it did not. It was not corporate. It was not corporate. It was like, where in the world did you get those clothes? I had two suits back then. I had two suits. Neither one of them was wool or a natural fabric. My two suits had all kind of polyurethane, poly. One of them was gray with black pinstripes. Okay, and one of them was peach colored. It was peach colored with a light peach pinstripe in it. I had two suits. So, and other than that, I had some white shirts and some slacks, stuff like that. So, needless to say, early on in my career, like a couple of weeks in, I'll never forget this. There are some great people that I met along the way at Quaker Oats that helped me out and all along my career, just like Nick Mamana and Dick Lessler helped me out at the University of Arizona, and my coach, Coach Tony Mason, who was like a father to me, Coach Shaw. And early on in my career, running back coach named Mike Godfrey, they were like dads to me, right? So I get to this place, right? And I had played football, so I'm a big dude, okay? And so these are my measurements. I had a 52-inch chest and a 32-inch waist. So let me ask you a question. Where was I going to buy a suit? Nowhere off the rack. I didn't have first and last month's rent. I sure wasn't buying no tailored suits. So this young lady, I'm going to tell you her name, it was Kathy Stevenson. She saw me and she said, Lord, I mean, she didn't say Lord, but basically she said, Lord, like this is a grandma saying. My grandma had this saying, a person is a lost ball in high weeds. So think about that. You're playing ball and it goes out in the high weeds and it's lost. You know what I mean? You trying to find it so you keep the game. That was me. I was a lost ball in high weeds. Well, Kathy Stevenson found me, and she didn't know me. I had been at Quaker Oats for 2 weeks. So how long did I know her? 2 weeks. She gave me her American Express card. With her name on it, and said, "There's a tailor across the street. I get some of my suits made there. Here's his name. I want you to go see him, and this is what you buy." She said, "Buy a blue wool suit, not too heavy wool, kind of light, so you can wear it in the winter and summer. Then you want one that's either gray or brown suit. Then what you want to do is you want to get a navy blue sport coat, and two pair of gray pants, or a pair of gray and a pair of black pants. Okay, and shirts and ties and stuff like that. Okay, now how am I supposed to pay for this? You get it, we'll set up a payment plan. Are you kidding me right now? Again, God looking out for me. And that's what happened. And I helped like that all the way through my career, right? At Quaker Oats, but I also had some pretty interesting experiences too. And you guys ever experienced racism or rejection at work? Two situations I'll tell you about. Can't tell you about that one. Two of them I will tell you about. One was a colleague, started about the same time I did, and I thought we were friends. I can be naive even now. And this person said to me, Gus, and I think about this from an identity standpoint. You think you're a part of this team, you're coming to work at this company, that you're an equal, and you are, because God has created you. You're made in the image and likeness of God. You are an equal. This person said, why do you keep coming here when nobody wants you to be here? it wasn't like me, Gus, but it was like me as a black person. Second instance, I had a manager. It's about the time I wanted to go to graduate school, right? And Quaker Oats would pay for your graduate school. And typically people went to Northwestern or University of Chicago. And because I was a marketing person and Northwestern was known for marketing, I didn't want to go to what was perceived to be a marketing school as a marketing professional. So I was going to go to what's perceived as a more of a finance, quantitative, economic school, University of Chicago. And so I went to my boss and told him what I wanted to do. And he had a question for me. He said, Gus, do you think you can compete with those MBAs at the University of Chicago? Now, implication is those MBAs, University of Chicago and Northwestern, were all the ones working at Quaker Oats that I was competing with already in the workplace. So what was he saying? So I pushed back and said, yeah, I'm competing with them now. I think I'll do fine. And I finally went through a couple of hoops, got approved to go to school. Quaker Oats paid for it. I didn't pay a dime for that master's degree. So I stayed at Quaker Oats for a while. To speed this up, got passed over several times for promotions. I got the MBA, and then I started looking, and I left Quaker Oats and went to Tropicana. Got a huge bump in pay, um, signing bonus, blah 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 blah. And this was like 1995 or so. And so had some similar experience at Tropicana. I worked at two other companies and ended my corporate career at a place called R.R. Donnelley. Okay, where I met some great people. Some people are still friends to this day. Great people. And but at some point along the way, I really wanted to be my own boss. Now here's something like from 1990 on till today, I've owned a business or had a what they call nowadays a side hustle, second career, and things like that. Man, I've done a bunch of different stuff, a bunch of different stuff. Some stuff that was kind of crazy and didn't work out, and other things that worked out very well. But all were learning experiences. And that's one thing I would encourage each one of you to do if you aren't doing it right now. If you're working somewhere, have something you do in addition to your work. Okay? Why? Because you can learn skills that if you choose to stay in work, it's going to help you do better. But it's also going to teach you how our economy works, how ideas are how you create income. Your imagination is how you create the most money. You come up with an idea of something that you're going to put into the marketplace that's going to create value for people. That's going to make you more money than working on a job. And that's a process that all of us really, man, I would encourage us to learn. I'm not going to say should, because you shouldn't should on anybody. But I would encourage you to consider that. Okay? I would encourage you to consider that. Does that make sense? So I left out of corporate and I went to work. I worked for 4 years at the Chicago Urban League. Great experience. I was involved in leading the entrepreneurship center there, which is all about helping Black business owners, primarily Black business owners. There were other people of color, but primarily Black business owners who have very unique experiences in the marketplace. Okay, and dealing with trying to build a business as a Black person is a unique experience. And in general, we need a lot of encouragement and support, period. But as a Black business person, really a whole lot. And I learned a whole lot during that time period of leading that entrepreneurship center. Along the way, I got married. Johannesburg, South Africa. Beautiful part of the world. I got married to my wife in 1985. We've got 3 adult children now. My wife and I will be married 38 years this year. My wife, Renee, is a saint. How I know that? She's married to me. If we ever have any problems, you know whose fault it was? Usually mine. Okay. Renee's the sweetest, most unconditionally loving person I know. And we got 3 tremendous children that I love them and I like them. They're 3 of my favorite people on the whole earth. You know, very smart, very wise, and just good people. Okay? Good people. And they all single too. So y'all, somebody come scoop them up. All right. Come on now. I need to be a granddaddy. Come on now. Help a brother out. Very involved in my church. Became a believer in Jesus Christ when I was 18. So it's been 47 years. And I've always been involved in my church and teaching and things like that. So like I told you about the University of Chicago, and then I started in the financial services industry in 2022. And that happened because in the church that I helped start, I got involved with it. And one of the things I began to see in my own life was a real need to get a handle on money. Because of growing up with a single mom, losing my dad, no life insurance, struggle. Got to Chicago, started making really good money, with no direction, still support my family back home, but was not making smart decisions with the money that I had. And just, hey, struggle. So I started a financial practice back in 2002. Got my licenses, got involved in helping people. Why? Because I took a course from something called Crown Financial Ministries that taught about God and our money. And the bottom line is God owns everything. And we're meant to be stewards. And where we get into trouble is thinking we own things. And we don't. Everything you see and everything you can't see is owned by God. And we're supposed to be stewards of it. And in our stewardship of it, we create value from the seed God has put into us. We create value for other people. Value is given back to us that we invest in other people. We don't hoard it all to ourselves. Okay? And so part of the reason why I'm on this podcast is to teach a couple things. One is principles about money, principles about God's word, how they come together and help us to build our lives and also build the kingdom of God. Now, whatever I share on this program, it's got to do with me. None of the companies I represent, none of the companies I work with. There is something that I started working on about 3 years ago. You can go check this out, okay? And I can't say a whole lot about it to you in this program, in this format, but it's called the Dream Exchange. It's a majority Black-owned stock exchange that we'll be launching by the end of this year. Check it out at dreamx.com and check out our theme song. It's called Dream Again. It's on all streaming platforms, Apple Music, Spotify, Pen, whatever. You can look it up, Dream Again. Give me some feedback, what you think about it. And what this stock exchange is about, we talk about putting the all back in Wall Street, helping the average ordinary person who owns a business that's trying to raise money for their business, to give them an avenue, one, to learn about how to do that, and two, have access to capital that otherwise they wouldn't have had, and three, to create financial literacy programs to continue to teach us about capitalism, the capital markets, and things like that. Okay, so we're gonna just kind of boom, put a pin in it right there, and when we get together next week, we're going to talk about the 4 ways you make money, the 4 ways you create value, how you build wisdom and personal development so you can increase the value that you create in the marketplace. Okay? Hey, God bless you guys. Have a great weekend. Okay, and like, subscribe, share this with other people. See you guys next week. All right.